you just dropped $600 on a one-year emergency food supply. The label promises survival. The marketing screams peace of mind. The bucket sits in your garage looking reassuringly substantial. And you are going to starve to death in about 4 months. Maybe 5 if you're lucky, and don't mind losing 40% of your body mass along the way. Welcome to the Calorie Con, the numbers game that survival food companies have been playing with your life for decades. And if you think I'm being dramatic, grab a calculator. We're about to do some math that will make you question every single prepper purchase you've ever made. Because here's the dirty secret nobody in the tactical bro forums wants to admit. That year, supply isn't a year supply. That month kit won't last a month. And those servings they're counting, they wouldn't satisfy a toddler having a light snack. Let's start with the foundation. The biological reality your body doesn't negotiate with. Your body burns somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 calories every single day just to keep you alive. Not thriving, not working, not hauling water or chopping wood or defending your property. Just breathing, pumping blood, maintaining body temperature, and keeping your brain functional enough to realize you're slowly starving. That's your basal metabolic rate, the non-negotiable energy tax your body collects just for existing. Now add actual survival activities: pumping water, filtering water, carrying water, securing your perimeter, maintaining your shelter, preparing food with no electricity, manual labor, physical security, walking anywhere because your car doesn't work and gasoline is either gone or worth more than gold. Suddenly, you're not looking at 2,000 calories. You're looking at 2,500 minimum, probably closer to 3,000 if you're doing real work. And if you're young, male, and doing heavy manual labor in cold weather, try 3,500 to 4,000 calories daily. Your body doesn't care about your budget. It doesn't care about your stockpile. It burns what it burns. And when you can't supply the fuel, it starts burning you. But here's where it gets mathematically brutal. Let's examine what the survival food industry is actually selling you. Take a typical 1-month food supply from any of the major brands. You know the ones, the buckets that promise 30 days of sustenance. The kits advertise with serving counts that sound impressive: 200 servings, 300 servings, sometimes even 500 servings in the premium packages. Pull out your phone, open the calculator app. Let's do this together because I want you to see it with your own eyes. A popular 30-day emergency food kit advertises 192 servings. Sounds substantial. Sounds like plenty. Now divide those 192 servings by 30 days. That gives you 6.4 servings per day. Still sounds reasonable, right? Here's where the con reveals itself. Check the total calories in that bucket, not the serving count. The actual total caloric content. Most of these kits contain somewhere between 25,000 and 40,000 total calories for the entire month. Let's be generous and say yours has 40,000. Divide that by 30 days. You get approximately 1,333 calories per day. You need 2,000 minimum for basic survival. You're running a deficit of 667 calories every single day. That's a weekly deficit of over 4,600 calories. That's more than 2 days worth of food you're not getting every single week. Over a 30-day period, you're actually only getting about 20 days of actual survival calories. Your 1-month supply is a 3-week supply. And that's if you're sitting still doing absolutely nothing. But wait, so it gets worse, because we haven't talked about what those servings actually are. The survival food industry has weaponized the word serving to mean whatever they need it to mean to make the sale. A serving in their world might be half a cup of reconstituted oatmeal. It might be a single cup of soup that's 90% water by volume. It might be 4 crackers. They're counting every individual component as a separate serving to inflate the numbers. I've seen kits that count a single packet of hot chocolate mix as a serving. 60 calories of sugar water is now a meal in their accounting. I've seen breakfast servings that contain 120 calories. That's not breakfast. That's not even a snack. That's a nervous system desperately trying to keep you from passing out. But it counts as a serving. And that serving gets added to their marketing math. 200 servings sounds impressive until you realize half of them are flavored water and vegetable bouillon cubes. Here's another favorite trick: the per serving calorie count versus the per container calorie count. They'll advertise a meal that contains 600 calories per serving. Sounds decent. Sounds like real food. Then you read the fine print. Servings per container, 4. Wait, 4? You mean this single meal package that's supposed to feed you is actually designed to feed 4 people? Or feed one person over 4 separate occasions? Either way, you're not getting 600 calories. You're getting 150. Maybe 200 if you're willing to eat someone else's share. But the marketing said 600 calories, and technically they didn't lie. They just didn't clarify that you're supposed to divide that number by 4. Let's run another scenario. A popular 3-month emergency food supply advertises over 2,000 calories per day. Finally, someone gets it, or do they? Check the total calorie count in the entire kit. Most of these contain somewhere between 120,000 and 180,000 total calories. Let's say yours is on the high end. 180,000 calories. Divide by 90 days. That's 2,000 calories per day. Perfect. Except you're doing survival activities. You're burning 2,500 minimum. You're running a 500 calorie daily deficit. Over 90 days, that's a cumulative deficit of 45,000 calories. You know how much body weight that represents? About 13 pounds of body mass. Half of that will be muscle. Your body will cannibalize your muscles to make up the energy difference because it can't photosynthesize sunlight and good intentions. Now here's the real nightmare math. Let's say you actually believed the marketing. You bought what you thought was a year's supply for your family of 4. You spent $2,500. You've got these buckets stacked in your basement. You think you're prepared. The grid goes down. You start using your supplies. Let's calculate what you actually have. Most one-year supplies for a single person contain somewhere between 500,000 and 750,000 total calories. The good ones hit 730,000. That's roughly 2,000 calories per day for 365 days. But remember, you need 2,500 calories minimum for survival activities. At 2,000 calories daily, you're actually looking at a supply that lasts about 292 days. That's not a year. That's 9.6 months. You're short by 73 days, and you have 4 people. So that year's supply for your family? It's actually a 73-day supply, 2.5 months. Maybe 3 if everyone agrees to starve slowly together. This is the calorie deception at its most brutal. The math doesn't lie, your body doesn't negotiate. And the survival food companies know exactly what they're doing. But here's where it gets interesting. Let's talk about the economics of actual calories. Because once you understand the numbers, you realize you've been systematically overcharged for under-delivered promises. White rice contains approximately 1,648 calories per pound uncooked. A 5-gallon bucket holds roughly 30 to 32 pounds of rice. That's approximately 49,000 to 52,000 calories per bucket. That's 25 survival days in a single 5-gallon bucket. You can buy a 50-pound bag of white rice at wholesale for about $20 to $30, depending on your location. That's approximately 82,400 calories for $30 maximum. That's 2,747 calories per dollar. That's 41 days of actual survival calories for $30. Dried pinto beans contain approximately 1,568 calories per pound uncooked. A 5-gallon bucket holds about 30 pounds of dried beans. That's roughly 47,000 calories per bucket. Another 23 survival days. A 50-pound bag of dried pinto beans costs anywhere from $20 to $40, depending on source and quality. Let's say $40 for good beans. That's 78,400 calories. That's 39 days of survival calories for $40. That's 1,960 calories per dollar. Hard red wheat berries contain approximately 1,400 calories per pound. A 5-gallon bucket holds about 37 pounds of wheat berries. That's roughly 51,800 calories per bucket, 26 survival days. You can buy 50 pounds of wheat berries for $35 to $50. That's 70,000 calories for $50. That's 1,400 calories per dollar. And if you have a grain mill, you've got flour. If you've got flour, you've got bread. If you've got bread, you've got actual sustenance that doesn't taste like freeze-dried sadness. Now let's compare that to your $600 survival bucket. Let's say that bucket contains 40,000 total calories. That's 66.6 calories per dollar. You're paying 20 to 40 times more per calorie for the convenience of fancy packaging and marketing that promises you'll survive the apocalypse in style. The math is obscene. Here's a practical example. Let's build a real 3-month survival food supply using bulk staples. 300 pounds of white rice, $90 wholesale. 494,400 calories. 150 pounds of pinto beans, $120. 235,200 calories. 100 pounds of wheat berries, $100. 140,000 calories. Total calories, 869,600. Total cost, $310. That's enough calories to provide 2,500 calories per day for approximately 348 days. That's almost a full year of actual survival calories for one person, for about half the price of those fancy emergency food buckets that promise 3 months and deliver maybe 2. But let's add some reality to this, because rice, beans, and wheat alone will keep you alive. But they won't keep you healthy. You need fats, you need vitamins, you need minerals. You need variety, or you'll develop appetite fatigue so severe you'll stop eating even though you're starving. That's a real phenomenon. Your body will reject food that's too monotonous even when it desperately needs the calories. So let's add to our bulk supply. 25 pounds of white sugar, about $15, 44,000 calories. Not ideal nutrition, but calories are calories in survival situations and sugar stores forever. 50 pounds of vegetable oil, about $60. 200,000 calories of pure energy. Oil is calorie dense, stores well, and makes everything else more palatable. 25 pounds of powdered milk. $50, approximately 40,000 calories plus protein and calcium. 25 pounds of salt, about $5. Not calories, but essential for electrolyte balance and food preservation. 10 pounds of various dried spices and seasonings, $20. Makes the monotony bearable. Multivitamin supply for 1 year, $30. Prevents scurvy and other deficiency diseases. New total cost, $490. New total calories, 1,153,600. That's approximately 1,638 calories per dollar. That's enough to provide 2,500 calories per day for 461 days. That's over 15 months of actual survival calories for one person for less than $500. Compare that to the 1-year supply buckets selling for $2,000 to $3,000 that actually contain enough calories for about 9 months at starvation rations. The calorie deception isn't just about math, it's about psychology. Those emergency food buckets look substantial. They feel substantial. They have professional labels and clever marketing and reassuring weight. They promise peace of mind. They promise survival. They promise that you've done the responsible thing and prepared for the worst. But when you run the actual numbers, what they deliver is a slow starvation diet dressed up as preparedness. They're selling you the feeling of security while providing roughly 40% of the actual caloric content you need. And here's the even darker truth. The companies selling these products know the math. They have nutritionists. They have food scientists. They have actuaries who can calculate exactly how many calories a human needs to survive. They're not ignorant. They're not making innocent mistakes. They're making deliberate choices about serving sizes, about portion definitions, about how they present caloric information. Because if they advertised honestly, if they said, this 3-month supply will actually last about 40 days if you're doing survival activities, nobody would buy it. The truth doesn't sell. The illusion of preparedness sells. Think about the implications. Millions of people have spent billions of dollars collectively on emergency food supplies that won't actually sustain them through the crises they're preparing for. They think they're ready. They think they've solved the food security problem. They haven't. They've bought time, sure. A few weeks instead of a few days. But they haven't bought survival. They've bought a slower version of starvation. And they don't know it because they trusted the marketing. They trusted the serving counts. They trusted that 1 year's supply meant one actual year of actual survival. This is why the prepper community has such a strong emphasis on bulk staples. Rice and beans aren't sexy. They don't have 25-year shelf lives in fancy Mylar pouches. They don't have clever names like hearty beef stroganoff or savory chicken alfredo. They're just rice and beans, but they're honest. A pound of rice is a pound of rice. 1,648 calories. No tricks, no misleading serving sizes. No fine print that divides everything by 4 and hopes you don't notice. Just calories, just energy, just fuel for the biological machine that is your body. And here's what nobody tells you about those bulk staples. They're actually more versatile than freeze-dried meals. Rice can be cooked plain, fried, made into porridge, ground into flour, fermented into wine if you're ambitious. Beans can be boiled, refried, mashed, sprouted for fresh vegetables even in winter, ground into flour for protein supplementation. Wheat can be ground into flour, sprouted for greens, cooked whole like rice, malted for brewing. These aren't just calories, these are ingredients. They're the foundation of actual cooking. They're what actual humans have survived on for thousands of years before freeze-drying was invented. But the bulk staple strategy requires knowledge. It requires skill. It requires the ability to cook from scratch. It requires understanding ratios and cooking times and how to make the same basic ingredients interesting enough that your family doesn't stage a mutiny after 2 weeks of beans and rice. That knowledge is the real prep. The food is just stored chemical energy. The knowledge is what transforms that energy into sustenance. Let's talk about protein because this is where most survival food supplies catastrophically fail. Your body needs protein to maintain muscle mass, to repair tissue, to produce enzymes and hormones, to keep your immune system functional. The minimum protein requirement for an adult is approximately 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. For a 170-pound person, that's about 62 grams of protein daily. More if you're doing hard physical labor. Significantly more if you're injured or sick or stressed, which you probably will be in any situation where you're eating survival food. Check the protein content in those emergency food buckets. Most freeze-dried meals contain somewhere between 8 and 15 grams of protein per serving. And remember, a serving in their math might be 1/4 of a meal packet. So maybe you're getting 30 to 60 grams of protein per day if you're eating all your allotted servings. You're borderline protein deficient, even at sedentary activity levels. Add real work, and you're watching your body consume its own muscle tissue to meet protein demands. Dried beans contain approximately 25 grams of protein per cup uncooked. Rice contains about 13 grams per cup. Wheat berries contain about 26 grams per cup. If you're eating 2 cups of rice and 1 cup of beans daily for your 2,000 calories, you're getting about 63 grams of protein. That's adequate. That's survival. And if you add wheat into rotation, you're actually doing well nutritionally. This is why rice and beans is the classic survival combination. It's not just calories, it's complete protein. Between the two, you get all 9 essential amino acids your body can't synthesize on its own. Now let's address the elephant in the storage room, shelf life. The survival food companies love to advertise 25-year shelf lives, 30 years. Some claim indefinite shelf life if stored properly, and technically they're not lying. Freeze-dried food in sealed mylar with oxygen absorbers in a cool, dry place really can last decades. But so can white rice. So can dried beans if you rotate them every 5 to 7 years. So can wheat berries. So can oil if you choose the right types and store them properly. So can sugar essentially forever. So can salt actually forever because salt is a mineral and minerals don't expire. The shelf life argument is a wash. It's not a reason to pay 40 times more per calorie. Proper storage gives you the same longevity with bulk staples that you get with freeze-dried products. The difference is you're paying for the processing, the packaging, the convenience of just add water meals, which is fine if you've got unlimited money, but most people don't. Most people have a limited prep budget, and every dollar spent on overpriced freeze-dried meals is a dollar not spent on actual calories, on skills training, on tools, on water filtration, on medical supplies, on any of the hundred other things you need to actually survive. Here's the protocol. The actual strategy for food storage that won't leave you starving in month 3 of a prolonged crisis. Calculate your actual caloric needs, not the marketing numbers, not the wishful thinking. Your actual daily burn multiplied by the number of days you want to prepare, for multiplied by the number of people in your household. If you're preparing for a family of 4 for 1 year at 2,500 calories per person per day, you need 3,650,000 calories total. Write that number down. That's your target. Price your food by calories, not by servings. Calculate cost per calorie for everything you're considering. Bulk staples should give you somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 calories per dollar, depending on what you're buying and where. Freeze-dried meals typically give you 50 to 200 calories per dollar. The math tells you where your money should go. Build your stockpile on bulk staples first. Rice, beans, wheat, oil, sugar, salt. These give you the caloric foundation. These give you the energy base. Aim for 60 to 70% of your total caloric needs met through cheap, dense staples. Then supplement with canned goods, freeze-dried vegetables, powdered milk, vitamins, spices, comfort foods. But the foundation is bulk calories at bulk prices. Learn to cook from scratch. This isn't optional. If you can't turn dried beans into something edible, your bean stockpile is worthless. If you can't bake bread from wheat flour, your wheat berries are just expensive birdseed. If you can't make rice interesting after the 50th consecutive meal, your family will develop appetite fatigue and stop eating. The knowledge is the prep. The food is just raw material. Rotate your stock. This is basic but critical. Use the oldest first. Replace what you use. Keep everything moving. Dried beans older than 7 years become impossible to soften no matter how long you cook them. They turn into little rocks, still technically edible, still calories, but unpleasant enough that you won't want to eat them. Oil goes rancid. Even sealed oil eventually oxidizes. Rotate it every 2 to 3 years. Use it in normal cooking. Replace it. Keep it fresh. Store properly. Cool, dry, dark, consistent temperature. If you're serious about long-term storage, invest in proper food-grade buckets with gamma seal lids. Invest in Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. It costs a few dollars per bucket, but it buys you decades of viability. Your survival food should be stored with the same care you'd give to ammunition or important documents. Because in a real crisis, it might be just as valuable. Diversify your calories. Don't put everything into one type of food. Rice and beans are great, but you need variety. Different grains, different legumes, different protein sources, different fats. Not just for nutrition, though that matters, but for psychology, for morale, for the mental health of eating something that doesn't make you want to quit. Appetite fatigue is a real killer. People have literally starved to death while surrounded by food because the food was too monotonous and their brain rejected it. Variety keeps you eating. Eating keeps you alive. Consider calorie density for bug-out scenarios. If you need to move, weight matters. Oil is the most calorie-dense food, 2,800 to 3,200 calories per pound. Nuts are next at 2,400 to 2,800 calories per pound. Dried beans are about 1,500 calories per pound. Rice is about 1,600. If you're building a bug-out bag, you want maximum calories for minimum weight. You're not storing 5-gallon buckets. You're storing caloric density. You're storing energy per ounce carried. The calorie deception isn't just about corporate marketing. It's about our own cognitive biases. We want to believe we're prepared. We want to believe the nice salesperson who told us this bucket would feed our family for a month. We want to believe the label that says 1 year supply, because believing that feels good. It feels responsible. It feels like we've solved a problem. But the math doesn't care about our feelings. Physics doesn't negotiate with marketing copy. Your body burns what it burns. And when the calories aren't there, you starve regardless of what the bucket promised. This is survival pragmatism at its most brutal. You have a finite amount of money to spend on preparedness. Every dollar that goes to overpriced, underdelivered food is a dollar that doesn't go to something else you need. Maybe that's water filtration. Maybe that's medical supplies. Maybe that's ammunition. Maybe that's skills training. Maybe it's just more food, actual food, food that contains the calories you need to survive. The opportunity cost is real. The trade-offs are real. The consequences are real. So here's your choice. You can keep believing the marketing. You can keep buying the buckets with the professional labels and the reassuring serving counts. You can keep telling yourself you're prepared because you spent money and now you have stuff. Or you can pull out a calculator. You can run the actual numbers. You can calculate what you really need versus what you really have. You can make hard decisions based on mathematics instead of feelings. You can build a food storage strategy based on calories per dollar instead of convenience per serving. The clock is running. The next crisis doesn't care if you figured this out. The next blackout doesn't pause while you recalculate your food supply. The next supply chain disruption doesn't wait for you to learn how to cook dried beans. You either know the numbers now or you learn them while you're starving later. Those are your options. Most people won't do this math. Most people will look at their emergency food bucket and feel prepared and never verify the calorie content. Most people will continue to trust that 1 year supply means 1 year of survival. Most people will find out they were wrong when it's too late to fix it. Be one of the people who knows better. Be one of the people who actually did the math. Be one of the people who built a food storage strategy based on biological reality instead of marketing promises. Because when the grocery stores are empty and the supply chains are broken and you're living off what you stored, the truth becomes unavoidable. Either you have enough calories to survive or you don't. Either you planned based on mathematics or you planned based on feelings. Either your food storage works or it doesn't. And you won't get a second chance to recalculate. You get one opportunity to prepare properly. The question is whether you're using that opportunity to buy actual security or just the illusion of it. The math is brutal. The truth is uncomfortable. The consequences are severe. But knowledge is power. Understanding is survival. You now know what most people don't. You now understand the calorie deception that's been played on millions of preppers. The question is what you do with that knowledge. Do you recalculate your storage? Do you shift your strategy? Do you stop buying overpriced freeze-dried promises and start buying bulk calories at bulk prices? Or do you go back to feeling prepared without actually being prepared? Your body burns 2,500 calories per day. That's 750,000 calories per year. Multiply by your family size. That's your survival number. Everything else is just marketing. The truth is in the math. And the math doesn't lie. Calculate, prepare, survive, or don't. But don't say you weren't warned when your 1 year supply runs out in month 4 and you're staring at empty buckets wondering where all those promised calories went. They were never there. The serving counts were smoke. The marketing was mirrors, and you're going to be hungry. Do the math, know the truth, prep accordingly. Your life might depend on it.